Welcome back, everybody. Hopefully you've decided to stick around this long. We had never gone beyond 40 minutes before on anything, but we are going to do so here tonight. And what I'd like to talk to you about in this third part, we've already talked about Tom Mayo, the maker, his philosophies, his designs. Then we broke down each of the individual knives, what made them unique and special unto themselves. Now we're going to talk about value and the perception of the brand out there in the market. There's a lot of comings and goings right now in the knife world. And a lot of that has to do with a small number of people with a big amount of money in their wallets that will just pay anything because they decided to get into knives and they figure, well, everybody says them's the best, I'm going to pay all kinds of money. You know, you guys know that syndrome. Like with Southards, right now with Hobaks, with Shiragorovs, with certain other makers, it's getting to be ludicrous. A $900 Jeremy Marsh costs you $4,000. An $800 Todd Rexford costs you $6,000 on the secondary market, and so on and so forth. And this is certainly happening with the Mayos. Listen, they're great friggin' knives, and I don't want you to take anything I'm saying here as me saying anything less than that. These are great knives. And what you're looking at here are knives that from the maker are going to vary in these three anywhere between $800 and $1,200. Secondary market prices, figure $2,000 here. I would say fair, $12,000 to $1,200 here, maybe more like $1,500 because of the rarity of the carbon fiber. And I'm not even going to bother to guess on the covert. You're looking at very expensive knives to begin with, and the inflated prices we're seeing now on the secondary market. And this really has gotten to the point where it has nothing to do with the maker. Now, a couple of makers, and I won't mention any names, are taking advantage of this craziness. And they're starting to allow their stuff. They're putting their stuff out there and letting it go to dealers that they know will really go crazy with the prices. And you know what? That's between the dealer, the maker, and ultimately the buyer at the end of the day. Problem is, there's still some jackhole out there that will pay $4,000 for a $900 knife. And why I say jackhole is because what he's doing is ruining it for everybody else. I'm not saying Jeremy Marsh's work or Tom Mayo's work or Todd Rexford's work isn't worth more than they're charging. Is it worth 5 times, 10 times, 100 times what they're charging? I gotta say, I can't think of a single folding pocket knife made that I would pay $5,000 for. I mean, until you start getting into art and fantasy knives that have inlays of gold and gemstones, and they're using SM100 for the blades, you know, just because it's a very, very costly material. I don't see it. You hand me a 3¼ inch titanium folder like this, I'm not going to pay $2,000 for it, even if it is a Tom Mayo. Is it made well? Oh shit, yeah. Is it twice as good as a Peter Recente Druid? I don't know about that. And again, that's probably a bad example because Recentes right now are going through the friggin' roof too. There's more hand work in this from what I understand. I don't stand next to Peter Recente when he's making a knife, so I can't say how much is done by CNC or water jet or by hand, but I do know that the knife in my hand was built by hand. And tools controlled by a hand, not by a computer. I look at some knives, I'll use an example here. In the world of custom knives, my Jason Clark is not very expensive. But look how smooth that knife is. It's incredible, the action and the detent that knife is. That's $500. That's what he charges for this knife. There isn't a huge secondary market for it, so the prices aren't going insane yet. This is not as smooth as that knife. I don't think it was really intended to be. But it's still very smooth. It is, I would definitely say, Sebenza smooth. Maybe a hair smoother. And that really does say a lot because Sebenzas are incredibly smooth. Now let's figure on average you're going to spend, let's say $1,200, $1,300 for that. That's what you're going to spend on a Rockstead. Again, I get my thumb out of there fast because these are stupid sharp. This is a very exotic grind, and I've talked to some of the most masterful knife makers in the game today and talked about Rockstead, and even they say they can't duplicate this edge. They cannot do it. The edge geometry is almost beyond comprehension to them. Fantastic steel, fantastic edge geometry. A look that some people love, that some people hate. Whatever. And it's not titanium, so it's not as expensive here. This edge is going to last longer than this one, even though that's 6K, just because of the way it was ground, the precision. So it's really hard to ever be able to say, is a knife really worth this X amount of dollars? You know what, at the end of the day, I'm sorry, I just bumped my camera. At the end of the day, it comes down to you. Are you comfortable with spending, let's say it's $2,000 on this Moran? This is a badass knife. I like this knife a lot. Do I like it $2,000? Hell no. If I was able to pick this up for $800, $900, $1,000, yeah. Maybe even as high as $1,200 because it is special, it is unique. And it is a really, really well-built, almost overbuilt knife when you really feel it in your hand. But if the secondary market says $2,000, I say no thank you, I'll look for something else. A lot of great knives out there for $2,000, my friends. And some of this shit gets out of hand. And again, it has nothing to do with Mayos. I look at my Quebec. You know, when Jake started making these, I don't even want to say what they were when he first started making them. But in the generation that mine is in, about $850 and in 3V. Just saw one sell at Arizona Custom Knives. You guys can say whatever you want. I love those guys over there. Sometimes they get you, sometimes you get them. I've actually gotten a couple of screaming deals from them. So we'll keep that chatter to a minimum, please. $1,450. Now I can tell you one thing, I'm so attached to this knife, if somebody offered me $1,450, I wouldn't take it. Does that mean it's worth more than $1,450? No. It just means I have an emotional attachment to this inanimate object that goes beyond what $1,450 will pay for. And I think sometimes it's our passion that gets the best of us. And that goes with anything. That can go with watches, knives, guns, anything collectible, where we share a collective passion. And we tend to collect and buy and buy and buy and more and more and more. You see it on the forums related to anything collectible. You see Flame Wars break out, the so-called know-it-alls that have nothing better to do in their life than sit behind a computer and post on forums, and they got 50,000 posts per year, and they're this and they're that. Well, they just don't have as much of a life as maybe you do, but they have probably done a lot of research. Doesn't mean they know it all, and a lot of times they tend not to. But what I'm getting at is there's a lot of passion that goes into it. And that's why you'll see huge fights, people getting banned, friendships being dissolved, groups drawing a line in the sand defending dude A or dude B over what? Knives or watches or skull rings or whatever it is they're into. There's so much passion that goes into it. And I think that passion sometimes clouds our judgment. I'm going to tell you right now, the big hot makers that you're seeing today, not the names that go back far in history like Tom Mayo and Randall made knives and Gil Hibben and things like that. I'm talking about the names that have come along in the past 10 years or 5 years. In 20 years, you're not going to know who the hell they are. You're probably not even going to remember them, probably not even going to own one of their knives. You know, one of the hot ones right now that I love my Dyer ware. Do you think in 20 years, people are going to have the same respect they do for a Direware as somebody today does for an old Loveless, or a Michael Walker, or a Ron Best, or a Joe Caius? No, it's not the same. So a lot of these are going to be, it's going to be a come and go trend. I don't want to say a fad because that really puts a negative connotation on it. But we buy with the same passion that we argue with. And if you see this knife pop up on, let's just say eBay, you really want that sumbitch. And that bastard outbid you. You thought you were going to get it for table price, $850, man. You were all excited. And that sumbitch came in there, and he didn't just bid. You've been trying to rebid, and he's got his bid set up to $1,200, and you're like, you son of a bitch. Now you're getting invested in it without even owning it. And that's what the seller's praying for. And you're going to keep bidding, and he's going to keep bidding. And next thing you know, one of these sells for $2,000. Do you know what happens after that? The guys that own this knife, that watched that auction, just went, holy shit, my knife's worth $2,000. Guess what they're going to try and sell it for at any point that they need or want to sell it. And now you set a new bar. And that unfortunately is what's happening right now in the entire industry. Is it right? Is it wrong? It's not up to me to say. But if we all collectively just agreed, we're not going to take this anymore. We're not going to let dealers way overcharge us. We're not going to offer crazy amounts of money. We're going to let this market settle down a little bit. I think it would become a lot easier for everybody. But, you know, that's really an impossible thing to ask. You know, because when you really want something, listen, like I said, I'd love to have one of these in the larger size, and the one I really want, because I'm a flipper guy, is the Dr. Death flipper. And I know what I'm supposed to pay for that, and if somebody came to me tomorrow and said, boom, you can have it for that plus an extra $300 because I want to make a couple of bucks for you to pry it out of my hands, would I do it? Yeah, probably. As much as I want to sit here and get up on the soapbox and wag my finger, that's not who I am. I'm going to be a realist. And I'll be honest, yeah, I would probably do it because that particular thing I really want. Did I pay more than I should have for my Southern? Well, I paid more than the maker price. But I didn't pay $3,000, $4,000 like I should have for it because of what a unique and rare piece this happens to be. And would I have paid that? No. I'll be honest with you. As perfect as it is and as great of a guy as Brad is and his workmanship, no, I wouldn't have paid it because I have a certain threshold that I like to stay within. These are great knives. Are they worth the secondary market prices? Only you can decide that. For me, take it by a case-by-case basis. Some people are out there with raper prices, and some people have a better handle on what knives are really worth, or they don't want to ruin their reputation. Because let me tell you right now, if you're a guy that, I don't know, you bought this really cool knife and you told people, oh, I got this, and I didn't really get a bad price on it, and then you turn around 3 months, 6 months, a year later, you forget how long people's memories are, and you sell it for one of those raper prices. Your buddies may not say shit to you. Your pals, even the general acquaintances on a forum, may not say shit to you, but they're going to remember it. And they're talking behind your back in their little cliques. Oh, did you see what Johnny sold that friggin' knife for? What a dick. I know Trevor who sold that to Johnny, and he sold it to him for $800. Johnny sold it for $2,500 just because the market was hot on it. Why wouldn't he have sold it to one of us? Make a couple bucks off of us because it is rare, but why would he do that? Believe me, that's being said about you. Now, it depends on you if you care about that or not. Some people, their reputation online is all they live for. And sometimes that's a great thing, especially when we live in a tight-knit community like this particular community. And your reputation sometimes is all you've got. And sometimes it shouldn't matter to you. Hey, maybe you got bills to pay. Maybe your kid had some medical bills and insurance dicked you over, and you just got to make that extra money. And you know you've got something that people are going to pay for. More power to you. But you can always tell the really good guys from the rest, because they're the ones that'll say that. Hey, I don't want to sell this knife, and I know what it's worth, and here's even what I paid for it. But I've got something important I've got to take care of, and I'm going to sell it for this. And it's your choice whether you want to overpay for it or not. The last two knives, the only two knives that I made any kind of profit on, I put in my sales listing. I paid this exact amount of money. I'm going to make $100 off of you. And it's up to you whether you're willing to accept that. You know what? The buyers appreciated that. But I think it's so hard to rein ourselves in on things that we want so desperately. And the knife market is so different than every other market because you could literally end up with something that there's only one made of. You look at almost any other passionate collectible thing in regular guy stuff, not talking about art or whatever. And it's maybe a limited production or limited edition, but certainly not usually going to be a one-off. I use another example I use for that is my Curtis F3. I requested Dave make this. He thought it was going to be a fun thing to do, and he made one of them. Now, in 5 years, will he make another one? Hey, who knows? But right now, this is the only one that exists, period. Dave hasn't even gotten around to making one for himself yet. I couldn't even imagine what the value is on this because his regular F3s are right now selling for about 40 to 50% more than the direct prices. So this is probably worth a lot more. I don't care. I'm not going to sell it. It's not for sale. So it's so hard to say no when you pull up a dealer website and the dealer goes, there's one of these that was ever made, either in this configuration or period. There was only one ever made. And you're thinking to yourself, well, shit. Man, if I don't buy that right now, somebody else is going to buy it. I need that. And we feel that need more than want. And that's what drives the prices up. I think that a lot of people are watching this series of videos today because they want to hear me say, these are amazing knives, or they're not, or I'm going to pick it apart. You've made it through two 20-minute videos and now almost 18 minutes into this one. I'm going to say this. These are really well-built, precision instruments. It's hard to compare it to the level of perfection that Kirby Lambert displays on a regular occasion, or Brad Southard, or Todd Rexford, because they all have their individual little things that make them special and beautiful. I think what makes these special is their simplicity. What seems to be a lack of intricacy actually brings forward a lot of detail that you do have to experience in your hand. You can't look at a picture of this knife and truly understand everything about it. You have to feel it. You have to feel that flathead screw that is in perfect alignment in height-wise with this titanium. The way that this hole feels. I like to feel that hole. That wasn't dirty. I love to feel the opening and closing, the operation, the action of this knife. Is it the fastest opener? No. Is it the absolute smoothest? No. But it has an action that is uniquely Mayo. And with all the makers that are out there these days, how many things can you really say about a knife and go, that is unique to that maker? Whether it be the holes, whether it be the very specific feel of the action, whether it be his lock geometry and the tension on his lock bars, which, by the way, this little guy and this big guy, the lock bar tension, even though they're tremendously different in length and in thickness, is just about identical. I want you to think about that. How the shit is that achieved? Well, that's the magic of knife making. And that's the dying art of knife making by hand. Making this level of perfection and making it accessible at whatever the price. All right, guys, that's going to wrap it up for me. I want to thank again Chris and John and Jean for their extremely generous nature, letting me handle these and play with these for as long as I have. This was an experience, and this absolutely put me over the edge, and I guarantee you, you're going to see mayo videos of my own personal mayos when I can get my hands on one. All right, guys, I will see you next time. Thanks for all your support as always. Love you guys.